We're going to get into the pipeline and the training a little bit later in the interview. I don't want to spoil anything right now. I kind of want to save that as a little bit of a treat down the line here. How old are you once you're out of the pipeline and you're officially a CCT?
Yeah, I think if you go truth to tell, if you did the math, all the training is 24 months. That's assuming you don't get washed back or you don't get injured. So if you join at 18 years old, you show up to your unit at 20 as an E4, um, and you're the youngest, least experienced guy on the team. But you've got 2 years of nothing but training under your belt.
Got it. Got it. That's young, but when you think about it, like you said, you still got 2 years of nothing but train, train, train. When we spoke before the interview, you had said something that really piqued my interest, that you were in Somalia not shortly before the Battle of Mogadishu and Black Hawk Down had occurred. Can you explain to the audience what you were doing there in your role and what was it like in Somalia? What was the atmosphere in the buildup to what became October 3rd, 1993?
Yeah, this is a great question. Thank you for asking because uh, in today's warfare, especially after GWAT, everybody likes to promote all the death and destruction that goes along with their jobs. And combat controllers have enough of that under their belts, for 10 different units or organizations, if you will. But there's also a humanitarian aspect to our job where we would go in and we will land airplanes in remote areas where planes can't land, or sometimes just give access to aircraft. So the reason I was in Somalia is there was a um, humanitarian effort going on to feed the Somalis. Somalia was controlled by three different warlords at that time, and everything that was coming in, the warlords would take and they would distribute among themselves, and then they would hold the population hostage. So I was stationed in Germany, and we got a call within 48 hours. I was on an airplane down to Djibouti, Africa, and then we staged off of the coast of Somalia because it was unsafe to stay on Somalia. So they actually turned a battle carrier group around for us, and we staged off the ship. And every morning we'd fly in and we'd run uh, the international airport right there in Somalia. We'd bring all the aid in. We had Pakistani UN forces with us, and their job was to usher the food at a distribution point and make sure it got out to the people who really needed it, as opposed to the warlords taking it. So that's why we're there. We're there for a humanitarian mission.
Did you get the sense at the time, even though you're there for a humanitarian mission, you're not conducting combat operations like you explained? Could you kind of get the sense like this situation feels like it could really escalate and get nasty?
Oh, absolutely. It was a powder keg from the time we stepped on the ground. And so we went in and we were full uniform, full kit, and weapons, everything exposed. We hit the ground, and I think there was 5 or 6 of us combat controllers. We get on the ground. I was on the first aircraft, which meant they went in, uncontrolled and it's parked in an open spot. And then we knew we were going to put all the rest of the airplanes. So we immediately got off and started marshaling planes into space. And as I'm marshaling planes, the State Department guy runs up to me. He's like, "You need to put your weapons away. You're gonna start something here." I'm like, "Hey, dude, you go talk to my boss because nothing you say matters to me." Um, and after that first day, they had us come in civilian clothes every day, and we had our weapons concealed. Um, but that first day we were on the ground, immediately there were teenage gang members driving up and down the runway in what they call technical vehicles. So basically Toyota Hiluxes and things like that with a 50 cal equivalent mounted in the back. So crew served weapon, if you will. While they never shot at us, they were absolutely trying to antagonize us. At least the technicals never shot at us. While we were at our control point every day, we're down on the north end of the runway. We would hear cracks go by us. It was harassing fire. They weren't trying to actually hit us, but they were trying to start something. So absolutely, we knew that place was a powder keg from the second we hit the ground.
And I do want to make a note here, and maybe you can expand on it. Dan Schilling spoke very highly, and he was in the Battle of Mogadishu as one of the CCTs, and he said that they were incredible calling in the helicopters and stuff. Do you have anything you want to say about the CCTs and what role they did play in the Battle of Mogadishu?
Oh, it's again, it was probably the first time in a while where they really got to put on display the asymmetric nature of a combat controller. We've been working with special forces and SEALs and Rangers for years, and as we would work up to go do things, people were like, yeah, you're here, you're here. We may need you. We'll probably never call for fire. We don't need it. Well, Somalia put on full display that, in close quarters environments, even when building, clearing, and capturing bad guys is the most important thing. What a combat controller brings to the table is very important. And whether it's Dan Schilling or Jeff Bray or Pat Rogers, or any of the other guys that were there, what they did in confined spaces and controlling aircraft was incredible. It saved a lot of lives. Had the administration at the time allowed us to use AC-130s, you can make the argument that it would have never gotten escalated as far as it would, but the administration wouldn't allow AC-130s to fly over Mogadishu, and that was a strategically poor decision that probably got a lot of people killed.
And I've spoken to some other veterans in that battle, and I think they would agree 1000% with the comments you just said. And I'm glad we were able to touch on Somalia because, like you said, and we're going to get into a lot of combat and the kind of the scale of destruction and raw power a CCT can bring. But also, it's very cool that there's a humanitarian element and they can help people. And I personally think that's very neat. After Mogadishu and after Somalia, you end up in Angola, Africa, working a little bit with the elections. Can you explain to the audience what you were doing there?
Yeah, so again, really a great time in my life as being a young operator. I came back from Somalia, and literally a week later, I got called in and said, "Hey, now you're going to Angola." And I'm like, "Cool, let's keep sending me. This is what I want to do." As we were going down there, the Angola was having their first democratic election in 30 years, and they were still a warring country. So we would literally fly into a warring factions camp at a dirt strip. We'd load up a bunch of them in the back of 130. We'd fly them to their hometown, let them vote, take them back, and then we'd go to the party they were fighting the next day, pick them up, take them to their hometown, let them vote. There wasn't a whole lot of combat controlling going on. Really, the air component commander at the time said, "Look, I want guys who understand ground stuff in the back of these planes because we're bringing on all these experienced warriors. Now they're tribal people, but they're warriors, and I need them to help me control what's going on in the back of the airplane." So we were almost like bouncers. We weren't armed. We were back there, and we controlled the onloading and offloading of people, and then we made sure people didn't have weapons and things like that. And every single day, something happened in the back of the airplane that the combat controllers could see what was going on, but the traditional Air Force people they were so focused on their Air Force test, they weren't picking up things. And we were mitigating danger every single day. There was one point where I had actually gone home. My buddy Scott Light had relieved me, and somebody had gotten injured out in a camp. And Scott had come up on a plane. He's like, "We can jump in, we can land an airplane, we get those people out of there." Unfortunately, the air component commander was very risk averse and was like, "Well, I can't have you jump in. There's no medics on the ground." And we're like, "Yeah, but that's a peacetime requirement. This is a real world scenario where somebody's life needs to be saved." And we can go save their life. But it's just interesting how things played out there in that deployment. And it was a great experience for me.